Hello, I'm APX Toycat, and for the first 10 years of Minecraft's existence, there were no new types of tiered armor, weapons, and tools added to the game, but that all changed in 2020 when we got Netherite. It changed again this year, making it absolutely clear that Mojang is not opposed to adding a new tier, and if we look at all the durability of weapons for every single type, you can see that the gap is absolutely right here between iron and diamond, and so is this where Mojang intends to add new tools, weapons, and armor? And if they were to do so, would they use something we already have, like emeralds or amethyst, or would they create something new altogether? Well, that's the question I want to explore today, and you can subscribe, by the way, if you like seeing these fun sorts of videos talking about the future of Minecraft. Today, I want to explore the case for and against Mojang adding a new tier of tool, because it's something we've seen them do so much of recently that it seems very clear an easy way to make people happy would be filling this gap right here. But let's start by talking about exactly why Mojang should add these new tools. My first argument in favour of a new tier of tools, weapons, and armour would be simply the durability case. The durability of iron is this, and the durability of a diamond pickaxe is this, whereas if we look at a netherite pickaxe, you can see the gap is bigger between iron and diamond than between diamond and netherite, despite netherite meant to be being worth this massive grind, this going to the nether and doing a bunch of stuff, which makes me think, therefore, that having a tool tier in between would be good. In fact, it's not just me who thinks this. If you look at popular ideas for, say, flint or netherrack, they never really get off the ground, whereas many more people are excited by nether gold or ruby gold as a tier, because having something else between here is just something that matters more to people. But I think rather than just saying how could it be worse than diamond but better than iron, is something that misses the point, because instead we could think about how diamond could maybe benefit from having something between it and gold. Gold, if you don't know, was added in 2010. Funnily enough, in 3 separate phases. Here are the gold tools, then the gold hoe, then the gold armor, and it kind of was added as a bad tier on purpose. It was meant to be like a funny bad tool almost, but what's weird is when they added enchanting, they actually gave it a really good niche, and that niche is enchantability. Enchantability is basically the guarantee of how good an enchantment you'll get at on average, and so if we enchant our pickaxe, we got both fortune 2 and efficiency 4, something that is very unlikely on an iron pickaxe, and even less likely on a diamond, because fun fact, diamond has less enchantability than the copper, iron, and netherite, as well as especially gold, meaning that diamond is actually a bad set of tools to enchant, and gold would be better. Now, obviously, even at the time before mending, this was just something no one really did outside of the niche efficiency 5 pickaxes if you wanted to get one naturally before that was possible, and Mojang kind of ruined and removed the niche of the gold pickaxe. Sorry about that. But what's interesting is the idea that we could have enchantability, we could have enchantments in general, be the thing that makes this new tier something that's worth having, even if in certain niche scenarios, and so that's something worth considering. We could have a tool tier that is slightly easier to get than diamonds, but that maybe some people would like more, because durability doesn't matter when you get mending anyway, which is why most people don't care about the netherite for its pure durability sake, because you'll never use the durability if you have mending anyway. Speaking of things you'll never use if you have mending anyway, I think that the second big reason outside of this would probably be an argument to aesthetics. I think that many people, in the same way that copper is cool, not because most people are expected to use it for a long time, but just because it looks cool to have this brand new choice. Oh yeah, doesn't a copper beacon look so much better than iron or diamond? And so in the same way that this is a cool thing, you could have a new tool and it would be really cool. It doesn't matter how useful it actually is, it matters that it's something new for players to do, and that seemingly is the vibe behind a lot of drops. Give players choices, and if they don't like them, then you just don't have to interact with them. And so is that a good way to do things? By itself, I would usually say no, but if we take into account the durability and the enchantability gap, you could actually use this third use case as the reason to justify its existence. Now, speaking of justifying existence, I do have to say, why is there a lava bucket in this furnace? What an interesting thing. That I would say that the biggest argument in favor of this, beyond just saying, well, it would make sense, and it's cool, and it could be enchantable, is the fact that the drop system clearly means that Mojang can now, if they want to, just add a new tier of things to the game. Back in the day, it used to be that every new item was meant to occupy some hyper-specific niche, and some of those niches were more valuable than others, but there was this real sense of trying to make every single individual item valuable. But Minecraft drops are basically there to be like, here's a bunch of content, I hope some of it is good, and honestly, it seems to be working for Mojang and for the community. And so in the same way that we had the pig with a saddle added, and no one really minded for a long time if you didn't use it, wouldn't it be cool if there was an equivalent of a pig with saddle, even if it literally filled no niche whatsoever? I think that this is something many people would agree with, and so the drop system allows for Mojang to add something that doesn't even need to make sense on a durability, enchantability, or coolness level, but that hopefully makes sense on those levels anyway. However, the fact that I have to say, hopefully this makes some sense, draws us into the negatives of this argument. It's not a fun case to make the negative for something, but if we're being honest, it's often the realistic case, because just like when Minecraft added the PlayStation and the Switch and all of the other platforms to Minecraft, it increased the workload of any new feature. The same is true for adding new tool tiers, because now you don't just have to add an axe for, say, lapis or quartz, but you also have to consider that it has to be in the armor trim sections, it has to have a brand new spear, and so over time, the amount of work for adding each new tier is getting greater and greater, especially as they create new art styles for things. And if we talk about the second case, it'd probably be best shown off by showing you this area. I made these little pixel arts for each of the tools all the way back in 2013, and in the time since I made these, I optimistically put an item frame on there to show there'd be an extra tool. In the time since I made these 12 years ago, there's been just 2 new tool tiers added. In fact, if we really look at it, you could make a little estimation that like, okay, if Netherite was added in 2020 and copper was added in 2025, even if they continue at their current pace, we're not due another tier until 2030, and then maybe even one after that, who's to say. But I think that it starts to get very unlikely once you start to consider that, yeah, at the current pace even, which Minecraft is always slowing, not increasing, at the current pace, it seems unlikely that so soon after adding copper, we would get something brand new, especially given that there is a real contingent of people that say that Minecraft used to be better. There are people who would still acknowledge that there are only 5 tiers and everything else is nonsense, and so is it the best idea to add new things for them to call nonsense? This is the big question, especially when if you wanted to add a new weapon, let's say, between iron and diamond, instead of adding a weapon that is off a brand new tier and having to make new armor and everything to go with it, why not instead just do what the mace did, or do what the trident did, or do what the crossbow did, and make independent one-off weapons anyway? This isn't immune to just those things. You can also have one-off types of, say, armor as well, and so if this is a thing that Mojang can do anyway, if there is room for innovation in the space, unlike the spear, it's very likely they might make a new weapon right here, or a new type of armor, or even a new type of shovel. The room for actual experimentation and new ideas probably isn't in just saying, what if it was slightly better than this, and slightly worse than this, but slightly better than this? That's not a very unique and compelling idea when you compare it to a weapon that gives you a massive damage boost when you fall on someone, or a weapon that you can literally throw at people from super far away despite being as good as a Netherite sword up close. These are the questions which... Also, can you see my skin there? You can. Only a little bit. But these are the questions that really are worth answering, and it's the reason why I think that ultimately, even though it's a fun idea to imagine new tool sets, I think that right now certainly isn't the time. But then that does raise the question of, okay, if the conclusion is that a new tool tier doesn't make perfect sense now, but it does make sense eventually, what would Mojang want to do for this? Back in the day when I was ranking the tools of ranking all of the foods in Minecraft that also existed in 2012, we had this tier that was below iron, and we also had a tier that was above diamond, so I think that saying emerald should be a tool ignores that emerald is meant to be a currency. I think saying that lapis should be a tool ignores the fact that it is very brittle and used in jewelry for a reason. I mean, that didn't stop gold, but clearly Mojang has moved on from the days of, lol, let's just make something, and so I think that if there were to be a new tier, it's very unlikely that they would use amethyst or emerald for their gear, but instead that they would add something brand new. You see, when it comes to adding new ores to the game, copper was first added in 2020, the year after, actually, 2021 I guess it would be, the year after they added the netherite to the game. They started working on copper, adding enough uses that it would actually make sense as its new whole tool tier. So I think if you want to see a new tier, you have to either say that, okay, there's some perfect way that quartz would make sense, or some perfect way that nether gold would make sense and need to be split off, or you've got to say that Minecraft needs a brand new ore, just like when we got emerald and just like when we got copper, and they need to make this new ore sooner than they add the new tool tier, and so that's what you need to be excited for right here. There are many big things on the horizon for Minecraft, and I think that being excited for them is great, but I would say that a tool tier is probably getting a little ahead of what we can expect right now. What is it we can expect right now? Well, that's a fun question that I would love to speculate endlessly about, but what I will say is I'm relatively certain that so soon after our last tool tier was added, we won't be seeing another, and I think that's honestly for the best of Minecraft. Speaking of things that are for the best, I hope you all enjoyed this video, I hope you enjoyed the slightly old school style, and consider subscribing if you did, or specifically unsubscribing if you didn't, because I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.